Yo, Mike, it's Tuesday, and that means it's more pain time in about 30 minutes. We got this
Is it
lead in
really
here,
Tuesday?
isn't it? You
I
screwed
don't
something
know.
up if it's not. Yeah, you can't tell, right? One day runs into the next. How are you, Mike?
Good, man. What's going on? Everything's a mess. I was just telling you off air. The hair's a mess. I look like a wild man. It's like I don't even have. How are you supposed to get out even get a haircut?
I was talking to the guy who owns the haircut place I've been going to for 20 years, and it's
What do
like
you
you
say?
can't. He wants to open, but he's worried that he'll get in trouble.
Yeah, did you see those clips online today with the people in Texas? They tried to open the bar and
Oh, I
they
didn't
got
see that. I saw cops beating people up for not wearing masks. It's not a law,
in New
by the
York
way.
City.
Yeah, beating
Well,
people hard.
that one cop you were like, dog, and that guy's got a kind of a interesting history of beating people down.
I mean, what's the story there, Mike? That's Francisco Garcia. He's got 7 settlements, badge number 19234. This is a guy who, if you or I went out in the street, slapped a guy, boxed his ears, punched him in the back of the head, throw him to the ground, knee to the back of the neck, punch him again, what would happen? Jail for assault.
Well, if you're with the FBI, you're at my house beating me down for hockey tapes.
You get a bonus for
But
that.
anybody else, yeah, you can't. The guy is like, first of all, the first thing I noticed in the video is, dude, somebody buy this guy a pair of pants. Number one, he's got the jeans on with all the rips in them. If you're going to be a thug, dress right for the camera. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, he was out of control, and there seems to be we're going to be getting into stuff tonight regarding law enforcement, FBI. I got some breaking news on FBI stuff that I'm happy to share. But this guy is particularly out of control, and he has a history. And is he NYPD or is he housing
He
cop?
is. Well, that's interesting that you asked that because I looked up the precinct and it was the housing precinct. So what's the distinction there?
I don't know, man. I stopped following those guys, years ago. I don't know how NYPD is broken down. It used to be housing used to be separate, though. I don't know if it still is.
Let's listen to this.
Move back. Move back right now. Move the back right now. Move the back. Move the back. What are you flexing for? Don't flex. You get lost up too.
It's illegal to flex during a pandemic.
He didn't even do nothing. He didn't even do nothing. Look. He didn't even do nothing.
Right, he's not moving and they're punching him. This one right here, he's not moving and he keeps punching him. I got to tell people something because this disappointed me so much. I was talking to Mike Zullo this morning about this. He totally defended the cops. He says there's nothing wrong. He says if I was getting raped by a violent homosexual in a bar, that's the cop I would want protecting me. That was such a bizarre thing for him to raise as an example. I don't know what's wrong with Mike Zullo, but anybody who supports that is supporting an enemy of the Constitution. You can't beat people down for not wearing medical masks.
We're 7 minutes in and we've gone off the rail.
Yeah.
I don't really know what the story is with that. I will tell you one thing, and I've been pro law enforcement, obviously, but I can be a MF or two when I see stuff like that because I'm all about the Constitution and I understand. I think Americans have given police a wide berth when it comes to mistakes in the line of duty. Sometimes a guy gets shot in the back and he didn't, sometimes these things happen and they lead to situations where the folks try to burn down the city and stuff. And police have gotten our backing on that, but because people make mistakes, right? And usually the folks on the other end, even though there's long or loss of life, there's wrongful death suits, and there is some compensation, although that never brings anybody back. But this stuff, no, they're going to lose any goodwill they have with folks that have backed them, and because I don't care what Mike Zulu said, but I'm talking about regular people out here because I have a pretty good pulse of Main Street, and I have for a long time. So what's happening on the street. And when people see that, Americans, patriots, things like that, on both sides of the aisle, man, they don't like that. They
No.
don't like that because there's no difference between that. Now, maybe that guy should have backed off a little bit. Okay. But, if they weren't acting like thugs in the street, the police, they wouldn't have drawn a crowd. I talked about this when I was last week on my podcast because I grew up in like Section 8 housing for a pretty good stretch, right?
Help people understand what that is, Section 8.
It's welfare housing. When family's not making enough money and you need to get assistance from the government, so it's Section 8's welfare housing. It's not always the best places, right? But
It can be dangerous.
It can be very dangerous. So I was a teenager, and if the cops showed up and started hassling somebody, like if they showed up and hassled us, we were doing something, we're screwing around, 3 or 4 of us. We lived in like apartments, you know what I mean? Apartment complex. It was real gritty. There would be like 60 kids coming out of nowhere and teenagers telling the cops to take a hike, you know what I mean? And the cops are like, whoa, what happened here? I'm like, this got out of control. And they have to know that sometimes when you act like that in the street, I always say the street never forgets. So with that video going around, and I think when the weather changes and you don't see 40 degrees, 50 degrees at night and things like that, the street doesn't forget. And these things build and they build and they build. And the folks that are being oppressed in that situation, the folks in the neighborhood, they feel violated too when these guys come in like that. And there's no reason to act like that. There's just, I found you just get so much more in a lot of situations. Now, if they were threatened with a weapon or something, that's a different ballgame, right?
Well, let's take it back a second, Mike.
Saying, hey, what?
Well, because what Zulo said was that the kids squared off in front of him, and that's
so what?
Well, but here's what I want to get to. First of all, I don't think that's a fair evaluation because we're seeing.
That guy went out of his way. That guy went out of his way
with the taser, pointing it at the crowd. He's cursing at him.
That's like.
But wait a second. Here's the most salient aspect. The initial arrest was a social distancing bust. That's the unconstitutional aspect of it. They do not have the right to do the things that they've been doing. The governor cannot tell us to stay in our houses. The governor cannot tell us constitutionally to close our businesses. The governor cannot tell us that the First Amendment is on hold. They had a press conference yesterday. Shea and de Blasio, the commissioner of the NYPD and the mayor of the city, said no assembly is allowed. Constitution is canceled. The big mistake that Mike Zulo and sympathetic police are making is that this guy, Garcia, beating down that kid, anyone who's pro-law enforcement should demand that Garcia be removed from the NYPD and prosecuted like a regular criminal. In fact, more harshly than a regular criminal, because he is putting every cop in danger. As you say, Mike, everybody who sees that video, anti-cop sentiment builds, and it puts everyone at risk. That guy's got to be handled immediately. He should be arrested and put in jail.
Won't happen. They paid out tens of thousands of dollars on civil rights claims against that guy for civil rights violations and stuff. Why is he still there? It's like, sometimes these guys, depending on who runs certain divisions and stuff or certain precincts, they like to have a pit bull to go out and, take care of things. I mean, I know how these guys work, but the problem with that is that I literally, and since I was a kid, I learned this, the street doesn't forget. They're going to file that away. And if something heats up this summer, and the difference between now and then too, I mean, talking about the 80s, right? We didn't have video in the 80s.
Right.
If somebody got roughed up in the street, word of mouth would spread, but it's not the same as seeing. Think about the first time you saw Rodney King get beat down. You're like, whoa, that's out of control. And so the power of video can be a problem. And everybody's entitled to their opinion, right? But that guy went out of his way. One of the things you learn in law enforcement and training and stuff is restraint.
Yes.
And smart, streetwise when you're on the street, whether you're working plain clothes or whatever you're working, right? That guy went looking for trouble, and guess what happens? A lot of times you go looking for trouble out there, you're going to find it, and you're not going to like it. And he got lucky. I would say if that was a month from now, that dude could have been in serious trouble because, and if more people were out on the street, and more people are going to be out on the street, they've had it with this bullshit from these politicians telling them, "Oh, don't come outside, don't come outside." I'm afraid that's largely over with. People are going to start coming when the weather breaks, and it's breaking now. But I mean, at nighttime and stuff. And I'm just going back from when I was growing up. There's a different energy in the air in this late spring and in early summer where you've been cooped up all winter and you want to get outside and you want to hang out and you want to. A lot of times you don't have anything to do, so you get in trouble. So if these guys come around, if these cops want to come around looking for trouble, they're going to find it because there's going to be people out there that don't have jobs, don't have to go to bed to get up for work, and I think it's almost like a perfect storm
Right.
of trouble. And these guys, plus, Jason, you have to add in economic situations and things like that, food and money.
People are getting stressed, Mike. And everybody's pissed, and they see a video like this when they've been locked in their house. They can't go visit their girlfriend. They can't go to their job. They're worrying about the future. And some jerk like this does that. You get a couple people who feel like they got nothing to lose.
Well, a similar thing happened in Texas today. Yesterday, a lady opened up a bar against the governor's order, Governor Abbott's order, and I think it was in Odessa, Texas. And the sheriff showed up with guns and corralled everybody. And there's a 60-second video circulating online that's not very flattering to the police because it shows them, coming with guns drawn. But these other dudes had guns too, and it's like a bad situation. But I called them today. I called the sheriff down there. I said, "Yo, what's going on with this thing? This makes you guys look pretty bad. What really happened?" And he explained everything to me. I'll have some more of it tomorrow on the podcast. And he basically said, look, these guys were in a bar. They had guns. They came from all over the state. These aren't just like local people. They're looking for trouble. And while we respect Second Amendment and things like that, can't have, hired guns coming at a place where there's alcohol that's not supposed to be opened. And they're looking for trouble, and it's not the way to handle things. You have to let things play out. And he did make a lot of sense. At the same time, saying you're allowed to carry a gun and stuff like that, but we just wanted to make sure nothing got out of hand because these weren't local boys. They came from all over the state, and we're just following Governor Abbott's order. If you have a problem with Governor Abbott, vote for somebody else or run for office.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that because these are cops taking illegal orders.
Hold on for a second. I'm not saying I agree with it either, but I wanted to call the guy to get his side of the story. So at least if we're debating it, it's not just a 35-second clip on the internet, And I wasn't able to get to the point because everybody had to run and no one ever has time, What's the matter with people from other parts of the state showing up with their weapons? It's like, is there just a local thing where you're allowed to have Second Amendment protection? And I understand that she wasn't allowed to be open in the first place, but understanding that.
Wait a minute.
What?
Did you see this? I'm looking at the same article that you're talking about, and it happens to mention that on Thursday in Texas, the number of COVID positive cases increased by 1,033. Isn't that interesting, Mike?
Well, I mean, this 33 keeps showing up. But keep in mind, right? I'm a student of history. And I'm not excusing anything that anybody does. If there's, this is obviously a minor thing that could have been blown into. And I think back at the Branch Davidians and the ATF, they came storming in and they hassled these guys for what was some kind of a minor civil thing. And
I read history. I find that fascinating.
Well, four agents got gunned down, right? And I was talking to the site commander about a week or two ago, the FBI site commander in Waco, who's retired now, and he says the Branch Davidians could have killed every one of those ATF agents if they wanted to. They could have killed 36 of them. They could have gunned them all down. I'm thinking,
really?
Yeah, that's what he told me. I mean, I
I thought it
have
was
to
a bunch
play
of
the.
kids in there.
Well, these kids could shoot.
Wow.
and and so the interesting thing is, bro, right? Is you see how these things, one little thing like that, and that turned into a 51-day siege, and they basically somebody torched the place. The FBI says we didn't torch the place, and the Branch Davidian
Oh.
says yes, you did.
Yeah.
So they killed a lot of people, right? And kids, 25 kids died in that situation. So you look at how these things like an overreach, and police have to understand too, especially now with the way the mood of the country is. You got to be careful. If you're knocking on somebody's door, you better have a good fucking reason, man.
Yeah.
Or you might not like what you find. And it's not like a threat. It's just look back at Waco,
Fact.
right? They could have handled this. Koresh was always buzzing around town on his Schwinn, and then he was always in town. They could have nabbed him up at any point. They wanted to go in there, the ATF, because they had a disaster at Ruby Ridge, a political, a PR disaster. They needed to change the narrative, and they wanted to go in there and be heroes, and they caused problems, right? So, and they got literally caught with their pants down. The 4 agents died, a lot were injured, and like the Bob Ricks said, FBI, they could have killed every one of them if they wanted to. So,
Well, you bring up Ruby Ridge, Mike, and that kind of takes us to what we're going to be talking about tonight. People are going to be up in arms when I say this, but I'm not that informed on what happened with Ruby Ridge. I know it was a big disaster, and we've heard that William Barr was involved in some kind of cleanup, some kind of cover-up. And now we're going to be talking later on the sponsor exclusive show, which is starting in just under 15 minutes on patreon.com/truepundit, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We're going to talk about whether or not the recent changes in the prosecution's case, this revelation of exculpatory information that's going to basically exonerate General Flynn, is what expected, but is it going to result in Durham finally being able to prosecute the members of the FBI who were involved in that? Give us a quick overview, if you can. What was Ruby Ridge all about? What was William Barr's role there?
well, I mean, Ruby Ridge is kind of, I compare it to what they were doing with the
Bundys.
Bundys, and Weaver. I think Weaver didn't want to leave, so he was holed up. And it was a standoff. It was like a small standoff, but he didn't want to leave, and so the ATF and the FBI. The ATF was in charge of it. The FBI came in like they always do when things get out of hand and they want to take over, right? And they were trying to negotiate the guy out. In the process, some bird brain had an idea that was a sniper and just like, we don't need to negotiate, we'll just kill him.
Wow.
And some bird brain sniper from the FBI scoped him through a window and then shot his wife in the neck and killed her. So,
wow. Why the wife?
Well, because he missed. He missed. So situations like that usually lead to other situations. That situation was exacerbated. Like, if you're David Koresh and you're seeing this, and then they come for you, you're going to react.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to react the way that David Koresh is. And then the FBI likes to blame McVeigh that he was radicalized by Waco. Now there's debate on whether that was true or not. But so you have Ruby Ridge, and then you have Waco, and then you have Oklahoma City as a byproduct of Waco. So these steps, you see, and that's why I say the street never forgets. Somebody sees that cop video and they're sitting in New York and they're saying, you know what? Everything I've had in my life has been taken from me in the last couple weeks. I don't have anything to lose, and I'm certainly not going to take any shit. So you never know what's going to happen out there. That's why you have to almost, walk on eggshells with some of these. So what if people were walking together in the city? So what?
That guy just wanted to beat somebody up.
Who cares? Well, that guy's gone looking for trouble enough times, and he might. And that, you never know. Look, you learn a lesson early on, and it's a lifelong lesson. If somebody in your life tells you, no matter how bad you think you are, there's always somebody badder. And once you lose that perspective, you're always putting yourself in a situation where it could be very bad, especially law enforcement. You always need to respect so-called your opponent or your adversary on the street. You don't know who you're dealing with. Even small guys, you're like, look at this guy. He's like, this guy's a wimp. The guy could know MMA, and the next thing you know, you're out cold on the street, put you in some kind of pretzel. You don't know. You don't know what the hell hits you, right? So you can't underestimate people. Not only that, you should treat them with a degree of respect. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in bad situations. So.
Well, Mike, we're just about out of time here on the preview, and we basically
we're gonna have a lot of
use
stuff
this
tonight.
We got a lot of stuff.
I got a lot of stuff. We'll be breaking news like we usually do. We're breaking news on Durham and something that's very encouraging. And I've been a critic of the DOJ, as people know. But in all fairness, in all fairness, when something good comes along, I don't have a problem telling people about it. And it's encouraging. And we need some encouraging news. So I'm happy to focus on that. And I talked to a lot of people from the FBI, retired, and some current folks in the last week. And on top of that, some other people in the federal bureaucracy. And so we'll spill the beans on that tonight. And then we'll get into that. And hopefully people can go to bed feeling a little bit better than they did.
Yeah.
But it's good.
Cool. Yeah, I'm interested in hearing that. I mean, this is a good format we've gotten into where you've got like some juicy story to drop. We sort of like talk about what's going on here up front. We let everybody know that late tonight, you're going to drop the next episode of the Thomas Paine podcast. Been some amazing interviews on there, great insight. Mike now also has a new feature, Pain in the Morning. So if anybody's planning on watching more Pain in 10 minutes on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Make sure you also go over to patreon.com/truepundit. Sponsor Mike and the True Pundit crew. You're going to get access to the video version of Pain in the Morning. Mike's been doing a lot of stuff to expand the offerings on patreon.com/truepundit. And of course, you can listen to the Thomas Paine podcast wherever you choose to download podcasts from. Is very popular, so make sure you get on there. Mike, I'll see you in just a few minutes on Patreon and Subscribestar.
Good stuff, man. I look forward to shooting the shit.
Thanks for watching, everybody.